I'm Bonnie Rabikoff, and this week we are at Justus Drugstore, a restaurant with their co-owner and chef Jonathan Justus. Jonathan, thank you for inviting us into your kitchen.
Thank you, Bonnie.
So, a drugstore that is now a restaurant. This place has some history. What is it?
This place has a lot of history. This property has been in my family for 170 years. My great-grandfather, who was born in 1820, think about that for a second, because not many 45-year-old men today have a great-grandfather born in 1820.
No.
He bought this property in 1840. My grandfather had a pharmacy around the corner from 1914 to 1955. He built this present building on this property in 1955. After his death, his daughter-in-law, my mother, took it over. She ran it for another 40 years. I grew up in here. I was a soda jerk behind the soda fountain from the day I could see over the counter.
Lots of memories.
Lots of memories.
Lots of memories. So, this space has been part of your family for a long time.
Yes.
It's part of your heritage. Did you know you wanted to be a chef when you were that little child near the soda jerk?
I have to tell you, I've been related a story. When I was 4 years old, I have older siblings. My mother had children over a 25-year span. And,
busy woman.
Yes, and a doctorate also. But my mother we were at home, and one of my sisters was back from college. I was 4 years old, and my older sister Jeanette flipped out because I was on a step stool on a gas stove cooking my own bacon and eggs at 4 years old. And then she said, Mom, Jonathan's cooking his own breakfast. And Mom said, oh, he does that every morning. But
so just at a very early age, you had an interest in cooking and were doing it safely and well, I assume.
I don't know about safely, but I'm not sure about
You're
well.
still here
but
to
I
talk
was doing
about
it.
it,
That's
yeah.
right. I am relatively scarless, physically anyway.
So a fascination with food from a very early age, but not necessarily in terms of your career?
No, when I got into high school, I thought that I wanted to be a painter. And when I told my...
As an artist.
As an artist, that's
yeah.
right. When I told my father, who has an Ivy League MBA, had before he passed, and my mother, who's got a doctorate, they said, we don't really think that's very funny, Jonathan.
So it wasn't taken seriously, but you have the need for, obviously, ability to be very creative.
I have to have that outlet.
Your first area of interest was to paint.
That's right.
And your parents didn't think that was funny?
No.
No.
And
No.
they didn't think it was a legitimate vocation.
Okay.
I graduated from Smithville High School with, 52 other students probably, and moved the day after, literally the day after,
Yes.
I moved to Los Angeles. I worked in construction for a year to get my residency, worked 2 years in 2 years as a nude model for art classes to put myself through community college. And
No comment? Go ahead.
and then I went to art school in Art Center College of Design, a very prestigious small school in Pasadena, California. And graduated from there, moved up to San Francisco, where I met my co-owner and partner of 20 years, Camille. And we discovered that we loved to eat out. And we would go down to a thrift store and buy a small jewelry box, or maybe a silverware box, or a small piece of furniture. And then if it was a box, we would gut the inside of it and line it with a tapestry or a brocade, and then I would paint a copy of a master's work on the surface of it. We'd take these down to Alamo Square, where the tourist buses come in on Saturday and Sunday morning,
Yes.
and sell one of these for $150 to $250 and go blow it on a meal, or pay the rent, because we had, depending on the time of month, blown our rent on a meal. And in those early
food,
days...
I mean, you were
Yes.
food, you and Camille,
Right.
foodies.
Yes. We used to carry a tailor's tape measure, and we were measuring table to floor, seat to table. Camille would mention, I can't cross my legs under this table, there's not enough room. Or there's no hook under the bar to hang a purse or a hat.
So what you're telling me is that for close to 20 years, this restaurant has been in the making.
It was incubating.
It was incubating because you love food.
Right.
You would devote large portions of your income to food, but not just that, the setting, the tables, the silverware. What made you happy? What was the right combination for that dining experience?
Camille and I call this the theater of dining. And the theater of dining can have many different dynamics. I mean, you can have mediocre food and great service and great ambiance, and that restaurant will probably always survive. And many chefs might disagree with me, but I feel that even if you have great food, I mean, you can have brilliant food. I've seen many restaurants with brilliant food go down the tubes because of poor service or poor ambiance. That you have to have the entire experience, as you said. And in this restaurant, this is not a come in and have a bite before the movie kind of restaurant generally. Although we have people that come up to the bar that snack after work. This is more of a sit-down 3-hour meal, and maybe not the kind of meal everyone wants to have every night, but it is more about a gathering experience. And I think
destination.
Today, and in life today, I think sometimes people need to slow down and have that.
You know, we're talking about slow cooking, and we're talking about, especially as the boomers are reflecting on our lives that have moved very, very quickly, savoring. And obviously, Justus Drugstore is a place to savor. So what is the concept for the restaurant?
Well, the concept is to put out food with a philosophy that we believe in. And actually, it's even more about that. It's about affecting change. When we were standing in front of this building, and you have to remember that we were previously living in the south of France. I was running a kitchen that was on the Mediterranean. Before that, I was working in Paris. Before that, we were in San Francisco for years.
And you left France because?
Do you know this? I'll tell you what. We left France because, I'll tell you what, I got this job, and I told the owner,
I shouldn't say that America's a wonderful place and you came home and we're so glad that you did, but I just was curious why you left France.
I think you're going to find this interesting.
Okay.
Our apartment was over the restaurant. The restaurant was on the beach in the Mediterranean, and when we got down there, the owner brought us down from Paris to check us out, and then I cooked for him for a week, and he would go to the fishing villages on both to the east and the west of us, Le Clodois and Sète, and get these fish coming off the day boats, and then go into Montpellier and go to the farmers markets and then the wholesale markets, and he would show up, and I did this every day for a year and a half. He would bring ingredients in, and then I would make a menu, and then we would run it that night.
Yep.
A year and a half after being there, we had a regular customer. Guillaume was the chief of police of Le Grand Mat, the city we were living in, and in the middle of March of 2006, he calls me on my cell phone, which it surprised me. I had never spoken to him outside the restaurant or on a phone before, and he says, I need you and Camille to come down to the station immediately. I have to talk to you. We were working under the table. And when we get down, and believe me, we didn't make any money, but when we got down to the station, and he says...
Are we talking a police station?
A police station.
We are talking a police station.
And I am sweating. I am really...
It's like a version of green card.
My stomach is in my throat, and we get down there, and he says, everyone thought it was hilarious when you got hired. In fact, we're going to finally put that crazy man out of business. But 6 months later, when we were putting a dent in the other restaurant's business in town, they didn't think it was so funny anymore. And a year and a half after this, the other restaurants had gotten together and started calling federal immigration.
Okay.
And he says, yesterday I got a phone call from federal immigration asking me about the 2 Americans working at that restaurant on the beach. I told the gentleman, I don't know anything about it. I'm sure it's not true, but I'll look into it. And he says, you need to leave. You cannot make me a liar.
So there.
Okay. That's how we came back.
You know, I always believe fate, that things are meant to be. And so now you shared all that you've learned and all the passion that you and your wife have to bring it here to the Kansas City area and back home to Smithville.
Now, this is how we ended up coming back, though. It was never my life's dream, really, to open a restaurant in Smithville. And it may have been more of a life's nightmare to move back here. But we were on our way to Montreal from the south of France. My parents were older, and as I said before, my father has since passed. We came to Smithville to say hello on our way through, and this building had just become vacated.
You never left.
And
Teach you to say hello.
That's right. My mother and my youngest of my 6 siblings, my little sister, said, why don't you guys, instead of moving to Montreal, put a rrestaurant in the old drugstore? And I said, well, what I said is not fit for print, actually, but I said, are you out of your mind? And but Camille was the one that said, I don't think you're really thinking about this. We had been planning a restaurant at that point for 16 years.
There you go.
And we had the set of goals that we had laid out, and one by one, starting with working in restaurants. We'd never worked in a restaurant before. My first cooking job, I was almost 33 years old. And when we were standing in front of this building, she said, look at downtown Smithville. It has all of this potential, and it's economically underperforming. And we knew that we were going to, whatever we were going to do, that we had to own the building, otherwise you don't have anything. And we also knew that that meant it was going to have to be someone or somewhere that was economically depressed or underperforming. We always thought it might be in an urban area or maybe in an up-and-coming wine region. And we also knew that we had rebuilt a 100-year-old home 13 years ago specifically as practice, because we knew that whatever we bought was going to have to be a fixer-upper and we'd have to do it ourselves. We knew we wouldn't have any investors.
Just think how prepared you were to do this.
This was a long-term plan. Really, the 16 years we spent in the planning of a restaurant and what we wanted and what we didn't want. But I didn't want it in Smithville. But as she said,
reflecting back.
No, that's right. And then she being Camille, said, look, we can go back to San Francisco. We can go back to Paris. We can move on to Montreal. And we can live in our insular community where everybody thinks like we do. And it'll feel like it's all okay, but it's not. If we're ever going to affect any kind of change in our beliefs, then we have to be the monkey wrench from the inside. That is the philosophy behind this restaurant. The reason we do farm to table is because we think it's important on so many different layers. It's important. We're trying to slow as disparate, well, not disparate, but things such as suburban sprawl. We're trying to get people to rethink the way they get their 99-cent hamburger. The 99-cent hamburger is not 99 cents. It's the, I don't proselytize to people that come into the restaurant, but this restaurant is based on philosophy. The infrastructure of subsidies that are set up for the chain restaurants is literally killing this country. And that's something we're trying to get people to at least think in some small way about.
Well, as people value the local sustainable foods, not only for their nutrition and flavor, but as part of an economic model, if you will. So you have a farm or farmland now? You are growing ground. You're going ground to table here.
Camille and I decided that the 80 hours a week that we spend in here just weren't enough.
It's not
so
enough. Slackers.
Yeah, we're in the process of building a farm. Our little 110-year-old bungalow, our entire house literally can fit inside this dining room.
Well, you live here in the restaurant anyway.
Yeah, that's right,
so
we do. It's a place that we go crash and feed the cat. We have initially taken the acre and a half that is around the house, and we were taking out all the grass and making an all edible landscape.
So this means that we know when we come to Justus that we're going to have seasonal food.
That's right.
The menu's going to be different because it's about what's growing or being harvested at the time.
Right. And I don't do other people's food. It's very important to me that to create. I spend a massive amount of time on recipe development and developing these dishes and conceptualizing them. Sometimes it can take months to get a dish out. I've had a dish that was my homage to root beer. It was a brisket dish, and it was braised in root beer. We made the root beer from scratch, but even more than that, most of the ingredients in the root beer we foraged out of the woods, which gets into, we are doing a massive wild foods program, and it was greens and mushrooms, but nuts and berries and...
So not all cultivated products. Some of them are wild. They're being harvested wild.
We have, on staff, we have a full-time botanist, and we have a environmental scientist that is also full-time that works with us and works for us. And we are part of the working with Johnson County Community College with the Alternative Agriculture Department and also their culinary department. Also the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, we are, I believe, the only restaurant externship site between Dallas and Chicago for the CIA.
That's cool. So a lot of great information. You're accessing wonderful information to help support what is happening here. And I suspect that Smithville did a lot of harvesting of wild products for the foods that happened here over the centuries.
Oh, absolutely, right. You know, there are things like sumac, wild sumac that grows here. There's poison sumac that's not really a sumac. It's in the poison ivy family. That does not grow here. It has a white berry. By the way, I also want to say, do not go out and forage your own foods.
Please.
Please. This is, we know what we are doing.
Botanist.
We have a
You
botanist that we
doing it,
have.
right.
We know exactly what we're doing, and we're very careful. Do not go out and pick berries. Do not go out and pick mushrooms that you are not completely and totally familiar with. One mushroom that is safe is a morel. A morel is a morel is a morel.
What was the reception of the town, even though the family had lived here for generations? How was it received at first, the concept of it?
Right, exactly. It was, we had middle construction, people stop by and ask what's going on and say, oh, well, I'll give you 3 months. And kind of,
Gotta get past that, yeah.
But then there, you know, his mother was very supportive, and that was key. My father, well, both my parents were both of them contributed to the finances of it, because of course no bank would have anything to do with it. So we put our house up that had been paid for and had to finance everything ourselves, which was good to, it's nice to have complete control. It's happened much faster than we expected, but a lot of press
A tribute to the great work that you're doing here, to have gotten that national recognition. We so appreciate that you all have stayed true to your dream and remained focused and continued to deliver the excellence that you do every day on the plate to the people who come here. You spend a great deal of time developing recipes by season. What are we going to make today?
Well, I was thinking about
You know, we have our celebrity taster is music director Michael Stern from the Kansas City Symphony. So
and I'm greatly looking forward to this.
He's on here, yeah.
I don't know what we want to cook yet. I've been thinking about this because you were saying on the fall menu, it's still been so warm. I'm getting so many green beans out of our garden right now. I'd like to do the steak. And the steak, but it is kind of a summer steak. It is over a tarragon spätzle. The sauce is a wild mulberry red wine sauce. It has, the beef comes from Mark Smith's at Maginola Farms. Mark, he processes only 5 steer every other week. He has his veterinarian come out and they do a sonogram on each of the candidates, and they only pick 5 best ones, and they know the marbling on them. He has...
Because marbling is flavor.
Marbling is flavor, that's right. And he has an amazing feed program that he's doing that is completely sustainable and doesn't buy into the monoprocessed.
So you think maybe steak
I was thinking maybe steak, and this has
beans,
has some green beans, and then on top is a froth of pine needle essence that we distill ourselves.
I think that we should go into the kitchen and do this.
Let's do
and
it.
I think that you should come with us. Hello, I'm Bonnie Rabikoff, and we are in the kitchen at Justus Drugstore, a restaurant with co-owner and chef Jonathan Justus. We are about to make one of his signature dishes this fall. That is a Maytag blue cheese salad, Maginola, am I saying that right?
And Maginola.
Maginola Kobe beef with an herb spätzle and green beans. Chef, are we starting with the salad?
Let's do the salad first.
Let's do the salad first. Okay.
We have our fall greens are coming on very nicely.
So pretty.
This is some arugula, and it's really very nice. It's got a little bite to it. What we're going to do here is I like doing dishes that when I'm composing a dish, I'm thinking first with the broad strokes, and then I work out to the details. I had the rough sketch of it pretty quickly that night. A blue cheese ice cream with a pork vinaigrette and the black walnut. I knew I wanted to make it a tuile, and
I should tell you, frequently these greens have a somewhat bitter taste,
Right.
and I will tell you, this actually tastes sweet.
it's a little bit sweet. Now,
It's
there's
a
still,
little bit sweet because it is so fresh and green tasting.
Now, there's
So-
still a little bitter in here.
A little
now,
bit,
What I'm doing with the bitter is balancing with the sweet vinaigrette,
Okay.
port and maple, and the maple is local. We cube these pears up. They, I don't know what pears these are because they come off of a tree near Smithfield Lake,
Okay.
and they're an heirloom that were from an old homestead when they bought the property for the parkland around the lake.
So how did you prepare this? Did
Well,
you cut it up and then?
We cut it up and then we vacuum sealed it with a little bit of simple syrup, and then we cooked these for 15 minutes at 82
Like
degrees
this?
Celsius, like
Yes.
this. And what it
Okay.
does, this is called sous vide, which means under vacuum in
Yes,
French.
yes.
This gives a particular texture to the pear. It makes it more dense. It has a nice little tooth to it. Here in the restaurant, any food that you're handling that's not going to be cooked with your hands, we wear gloves.
Okay.
Cannot stress enough at home. Wash your hands. Wash your hands
In between
always
doing,
and continually.
right.
You touch your face, wash your hands. You touch your hair, wash your hands. You touch anything, wash your hands. This is so important. This is so important to prevent the spread of disease and sickness and flus. We would all be a much healthier society.
Just washed our hands.
Just washed our hands.
Okay. All right. So since our musical director Michael Stern is going to be eating this and it won't be cooked prior to, you have put gloves on.
That's right.
All right.
I'm gonna salt my greens just a little bit.
So we're doing that.
And another thing, let's talk about salt for just a second. Many people know this, and maybe most people know this. Salt is different from sodium. Sodium causes hypertension and causes high blood pressure. Salt has wildly varying percentages of sodium. A natural sea salt can have half the sodium of an iodized salt.
We have lightly salted with
Very
sea
lightly.
salt our greens.
Right.
And then to that we're going to add.
This is my port maple vinaigrette.
Okay. So the vinaigrette's next.
Yeah,
Mix
and
that.
It's nice if when you're doing a salad, salt your greens about 15 seconds before
You add the vinaigrette?
Yeah, before you add the
Okay.
vinaigrette. You'll get some cellular breakdown from the salt on the surface of your greens, and it'll give your vinaigrette something to adhere to.
Okay, so it sticks onto the greens better with that
That's
light
right.
salting.
That's right. Cooking is a combination of science and art.
And art.
You want to try a piece?
Yes, please.
Find a nice smaller piece.
I just want to make sure it's okay.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's amazing. You know why that's amazing? We've got depth of flavor here. You don't need me to tell you that. Because you've got the sweet and you've got tangy, and it's happening all at once.
And with bitter. Bitter's
And
not
with
bad.
bitters.
Bitter is not
Like-
bad. Bitter is one of the 5 things that
Ooh,
we can
that-
taste along with salt.
Had to
and
choose some
sour,
more to get the
sweet,
bitter.
and umami. I'm sorry?
I had to choose some more to get the bitter.
That's right. There's
Different experiences as I was eating it. Oh, that's interesting and delicious. Okay, so the next thing is
Are the
the
pears.
poached or
Yeah, these are actually, you're right, they are
Are they
poached.
poached?
They
Would
are,
you say poached?
they're poached under a vacuum seal, which gives them this very specific texture.
Oh my word,
And
that's good.
I'll show you, I'll drop this into your hand. This
Yes.
has a totally different texture than a poached pear would normally have.
Okay, and that's important because if I didn't know you'd poached it, although there's wonderful flavor that's been infused, I would have thought it was a raw pear that had somehow been infused with some additional flavor.
Right. There's also, we use a
great
little bit
paired
of,
with that
there's just a little bit of vitamin C in this pear also that we
Keeps it
add. That it
color.
helps keep its color, and it also gives it a little bit more
Tang. Maybe
tang.
tang,
That's right.
you said?
That's right.
Okay. Oh, that's heaven.
This
The blue
is
cheese
blue
ice
cheese
cream.
ice
I
cream.
love
Now,
that.
This might surprise you.
Okay.
And this is, I want you to remember when you taste this,
Okay.
that, and I have to talk about this with my cooks all the time. This is an element. This is not a composition. It's part of a composition.
Right.
There are no bad flavors. There are only bad compositions. A lemon is not particularly, for most people, pleasant if you squeeze it into your mouth.
By itself.
But if you put sugar on the lemon, of course, it's much better. Now, I also talk about saturations of flavor. Sugar directly on lemon may be more of a balance of sweet and sour, but it's still very highly saturated. And of course, when you make lemonade, you're bringing down that saturation by adding water.
Right. I'm to taste this.
This is, and
This
it will.
is my blue
this is
cheese ice cream. Oh my goodness.
It's blue cheese. Now, I had someone recently ask me, well, why don't you just put the blue cheese straight on the salad?
Oh, you want that
I
chilled.
want,
Oh, you
and the
do.
other thing is that as this melts, there's going to be an evolution on the plate. Because the vinaigrette is going to start getting the blue cheese in it as it melts into it. And so you start with one thing and you end up with something completely different.
Now, we know we eat with our eyes first, and who would not want this?
Now,
Desserts and salad all at once. Okay, now you're going to make a special little dent
that's
for our
tuile.
tuile. And please tell us what's in the tuile.
Okay, the tuile has very little flour and a little bit of sugar, and then the nuts, that's all. And butter.
What kind of nuts, please?
I'm sorry, black walnuts.
So now we're making the Kobe beef. What are we looking for in this meat, chef?
Okay, this comes from, I mentioned it before, Mark Smith's at Maginola Farms. This is a ribeye. Now, normally when you get a ribeye, there'd be a big clump of fat over here. There'd be sinew or silver skin in here and another fat layer. I don't want anyone in this restaurant to have to chew something up and decide whether they're going to have to put it out on a plate or in a napkin or swallow it. We clean everything up. These are two different cuts. This is the cap, and then this is the eye. Beautiful marbling in here. This is incredible marbling.
Amazing marbling.
These animals are treated humanely and they're raised humanely. They're pastured, and Mark, I think I mentioned already, has this gentleman come out, his vet, and they do a sonogram on each of the animals, and that tells them what the marbling is before they get it. This is very, very special beef.
That is incredible. Amazing. Now, so we're getting it ready to go on the grill. What are we going to do to prepare?
Okay, now I like to infuse flavors everywhere I can.
Okay.
Everything, all of our proteins that get cooked in here, get cooked with something that is helping the overall composition. When I'm doing my current fish, it gets cooked in an oil that's infused with star anise and coriander and bay leaf. This oil has dried herbs. It's savory and rosemary and thyme.
Oh my
and
word!
And shallots. And so we're going to brush a little bit of this.
The shallots have an amazing, impart amazing flavor to that.
And
so herbs and shallots, and what kind of oil, please?
This is a straight canola oil.
Canola, because we don't really want the flavor of the oil. We want these flavors.
Right.
And reminding us that when you salt, you do it several inches above the product so that you evenly distribute the seasoning.
Now, the pepper also is not straight pepper. This is pepper, coriander, and bay leaf ground together.
Oh, heaven, that is so aromatic.
On a different dish, if this same steak, say on the next steak dish that I'm working on, will not have the same pepper mix.
Okay. Herbs and shallots in oil, canola oil,
it's
just a non-flavor.
Rosemary, thyme, savory are the main components on this. A little oregano.
And your special pepper mix. But really what you're doing is encouraging the cook to experiment with flavors rather than the traditional just salt and fresh cracked pepper.
Build layers of flavor.
So you have you season just before it hits the grill.
That's right.
And how hot is this grill? If you were...
This grill, it's not as hot as some.
At home, what would we be looking for?
I would call this medium high for a grill.
Medium high.
This is probably about 600 to 700 degrees. Now, a very, very hot grill can run up to over 1,000 degrees.
Right.
And when you see your grill and you've got grates on it and they're white, it's very,
very hot.
We do everything on timers because I want everything to be right. I do a minute and then we turn it, and then a minute, turn it, a minute, and turn it, and then I'm going to finish it in the oven. It'll take about 6 or 7 minutes. So while this is going...
So the big question,
yes,
should this be rare, medium rare, medium? What would you recommend for this cut?
What we're doing here, I would eat this medium rare.
And your recommendation is grill it and then finish it in the oven. At what temperature in the oven?
Our ovens run about 550 degrees. Now you can do it longer. You can do it longer in a lower oven. And take temperatures. Don't be afraid to use a thermometer. These are
what temperature do we want for medium rare?
For medium rare, about 135.
Okay. Yeah. Because we know it needs to rest, and we know it's going to continue cooking once it comes out of the oven.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about butter.
Right. I use only Leroy Chateau's butter. It is amazing.
No growth hormones, no steroids,
That's
no
right.
antibiotics.
It's humanely raised and handled. It is very, very good butter. It's the finest butter I've ever worked with, and it tastes different through different seasons. When you get it in the spring, when we first opened up, we opened up in May, and we don't get it in small packages. We get it in a 5-gallon bucket, 35 to 45 pounds at a time. When you open it up in the springtime, it smells like sweet green almonds, which really reminds me of California. You can take green almonds, peel them back with your thumbs, and eat the raw nut on the inside that's had a little bit of grassiness and nuttiness and almost a sweet pea flavor. As it goes into the summer and the temperatures outside really rock it up, and the animals are no longer on fresh spring grass and they're going on to mature summer grass, the milk fat will drop in the animals, in the cream and in the butter. But you get a much lighter tasting butter. It has a little bit more nuttiness and not the grassiness that you get in the springtime, and a little bit less assertive flavor, which is perfect. It makes something that you're cooking taste of that season. Now, when you get back into...
And taste lighter, and as the temperature rises,
you
know,
don't
we just
want it
let
heavy.
nature do it.
Absolutely.
It's going to take care of it for us.
Now, when you go into the fall, and these animals are eating silage, which is a fermented mixture, the milk fat skyrockets, and it starts to taste like Pecorino cheese has been cut into it, and it's amazing. It's this really full flavored butter, and that's what you want in the wintertime. I love working with this. Large corporations don't like to have flavor changes in their product because people have gotten so used to a homogenized flavor year-round, which is not the natural level of things, that people are going to think there's something wrong with their product when they get it from one season to the next. But this is...
So buying local and buying organic and sustainable gives you the truest flavors of the earth at that time.
When you're using great butter, you don't have to use a lot. I have an issue with, I think, a lot of chefs and a lot of cooks, in place of flavor, they use fat. I use vegetable stock. So you're adding more flavor here also.
You can just add some water or liquid or stock.
Right. What I do is I use a little stock, and then as the stock evaporates, when you get the right ratio of oil to water, you get an emulsion. And that emulsion will glaze your vegetables and it's what's called mounting. You're mounting your butter.
All right, so I noticed that you got the pans warmed first.
Yes.
You're adding some butter, some of that wonderful chateau butter.
Right. And then add green beans and shallots.
So these are fresh green beans.
Our shelling beans and green beans are going nuts right now.
And shallots is nice. It's a little more delicate. It still gives you the onion. And that's just vegetable stock. You
That's
can
right.
make your own. There are some quality vegetable
That's
stock
right. You can
products.
look at the ingredients. When you buy the box, any box stock,
And they have
look at the
organic.
ingredients. If you see hydrolyzed soy proteins, don't get it. When you see carrots, onions, or if you're looking at beef stock or chicken stock, beef or chicken, whatever it is, that's what you want to buy. Stay away from things that have...
Please read the
If it sounds like a chemical, it's a chemical.
It's chemical. So really, the fat content is reduced, the flavor remains, and you're still getting the taste of butter.
Right. There's really not very much butter in there.
Okay, let's talk about what spatzel is.
Spatzel is really just a free-form pasta, and you take a perforated pan and you push it through the perforated pan into boiling water, salted boiling water. And this spatzel has fresh tarragon in it.
See, there is. And again, treating it the same way with butter and some vegetable stock. That's done. That's how fast that happened.
Yeah, that's.
Now, are those green beans parboiled at all?
Yes, they are. We do what's called large pot blanching on all of our vegetables. I highly recommend it. You put salt in that water. The general rule is, and this is going to sound like a lot, but it doesn't all go into it's a cup to a gallon.
Yes.
And it should taste of the ocean. And what this will do, it sets the chlorophyll so your vegetables stay green. I'm going to add some sesame seeds to this.
Not toasted.
Now these have been toasted already.
These have been toasted
yes. There, you can see the color on them.
I can now, yes. So we eat with our eyes first, chef. And this is your canvas, and I notice it's a white plate, so artwork. Tell me, what is this you're putting on the plate
Okay,
now?
it is a
Beautiful.
wild mulberry maple red wine sauce. A ring mold
Okay, and in the ring mold,
is going to go our
the next
spetzel.
thing to plate is the spetzel, the herb spetzel.
Smell this.
I think this one right here. I won't touch it. I won't contaminate Michael. Oh my goodness.
Isn't
That's
that delicious?
amazing.
I'm doing a play off of mulberries are a very earthy flavor, and the tarragon is a very herbal, very floral flavor.
Yes.
And that floral is what I'm looking for in this dish.
You
on
got
this
it.
part of the dish.
Okay, next.
Okay. Makes
You're looking for the grain.
You want to
yeah.
cut it against the grain.
Yep. Sometimes we forget to do that, and it becomes less juicy when we do.
And also,
How beautiful.
not only less juicy, but a little tougher when you're cutting with the grain.
Yes. So the way you cut your meat does affect
It's texture
its
for sure.
texture and
it's-
juiciness. That is gorgeous, just the way it should be. So we're building this masterpiece, this work of art. Stunning. Our fresh green beans and shallots.
fresh with a little bit of sesame seeds,
Yes. Butter and vegetables.
butter and vegetable stock. And
So you're
After-
finishing this with some more sesame,
With
the toasted sesame seeds.
sesame seeds. And then last but not least, this is from white pine
Yes.
made into a froth.
Ah,
It's a white pine froth, and you have to taste this. This is very interesting and unusual.
forcing me to do this, Chef.
What we do on this to make this froth is
Oh, wow.
juice cucumbers, and then we puree pine needles into that cucumber juice. And pine needles are extremely antioxidant, and then we
I'm
strain
cured.
it out. We strain it out, and this is the white pine needle froth.
Okay, we're going to go to the bar. We're going to pair this with wine, and then our celebrity taster is going to tell us what he thinks. Hello, I'm Bonnie Rabakoff, and we have just been in the kitchen at Justus Drugstore, a restaurant, with their co-owner and chef Jonathan Justus. We've prepared a Colby beef with herb spetzel and green beans. We also prepared a salad that has pear with a blue cheese ice cream and a wonderful vinaigrette. What to drink with these signature dishes? Chef, what do you recommend? Let's begin with the Colby beef.
Okay, the beef that we have that we get from Maginola Farms is very, very flavorful. It's a little flinty, it has a lot of marbling, but also on the dish is a mulberry maple red wine sauce that's earthy and slightly sweet at the same time, and then the pine needle froth at the top of the dish, and then underneath there's a tarragon spetzel. Now, there are a lot of flavors in this dish and going in different directions, so it needs to have a wine that has a little bit of fruit, but not over the top fruit. It has to have some earth to it, and it needs a little bit of concentration. This is Ripestra. It's from Argentina. It is Malbec with Merlot and Tannat, which is a grape that is not used as often and maybe not as familiar. This wine is...
So it will hold up to the flavors that we have on the dish, because you know we have a celebrity taster,
That's right. And from what I understand-
music director Michael Stern, and you need to know he is a foodie.
I
So-
understand. I think he knows his wines.
And he knows his wine. Well, that smells fabulous. Now, Chef, what to have with this unique salad?
Okay, this salad has the bitterness of the wild arugula, and it has the blue cheese, black pepper ice cream, port maple vinaigrette, and the compressed pears, the sous vide pears. This wine is Craftsman. The grape is Harshalavaloo. It's a Hungarian wine. As you can see from the color, it is an oxidized wine. It's semi-sweet. It is similar to some of the sweeter French Vouvrays. So,
And that will hold up to the blue cheese and the pear and the walnuts.
And the walnuts, that's right. Those black walnuts are a difficult pairing. And this will also stand up to the
Smell that too. Oh, wow.
the arugula.
Okay, well, you've prepared the dish, you've paired it with wine, and now we are going to ask music director Michael Stern to taste. Hello, I'm Bonnie Rabikoff, and we have been in the kitchen at Justus Drugstore, a restaurant, with their executive chef and co-owner Jonathan Justus. To do our celebrity tasting this week, we have music director Michael Stern from the Kansas City Symphony. Thank you for taking time out of your very hectic schedule to come and be our celebrity taster.
Well, thank you for this. This is a treat.
It is a treat. It's artwork. And Chef, would you explain to us what you have prepared, the wines that you have selected for Michael, and then he's going to taste them for us?
Sure. You have the sauce you see on the plate in the 2 squares here is wild mulberry, local maple, and red wine sauce. Underneath the starch is spatzel, a free-form pasta that is scented with tarragon. You have the sliced American Kobe ribeye from Maginola Farms, the local fresh green beans off of our own farm. The froth on top is made from white pine needles. It's a pine needle froth.
Really?
The wine is a fruity but not over the top fruity wine. It does have some earthiness in it. This is a difficult pairing because the sauce is fairly sweet, but you have all this herbaceousness in 2 different directions of both the tarragon and then the pine needle, and they present some problems. And the green beans can be difficult to pair with also. Green beans are generally somewhat bitter. That we found, we went through, I think on this one in particular, I think I went through about 15, 16 wines to find the pairing.
So you've come up with this wine. It is a Merlot. It's a Malbec Merlot. So if you would, Michael, taste the food and the wine, and then we'll go to the next course.
Well, like I always do, I want to smell the wine, get myself ready.
I can do.
Wow, this is a work of art. I don't even know how to attack the plate, but...
However you want.
And, before coming to Kansas City, I was music director in Germany. So Spätzle is doing it right, especially when you're off-site. It's not a home run necessarily, so let's see. Oh my Lord.
Must be good. He's speechless.
That is amazing. Well, first of all, the meat itself is incredible.
Yes.
The meat itself is amazing and perfectly cooked, of course, but there's so much flavor, and the flavor is so profound. It's not just on the surface of let me get back to
Okay, well,
you
you better make sure of it.
Right,
I can
'cause
see
we need
another
another-
bite. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah. The Colby beef is marbleized. The fat is so well marbleized. The flavor is amazing.
We generally tell people, we describe each of our dishes, and we always tell people, I like to have people do exactly what Michael's doing right now. Taste each of the elements, and then mix them in a manner that makes your favorite bite.
That favorite bite.
Yeah, the Spätzle is out of this world. It's amazing.
And Chef also used a vegetable stock with the butter so that you had that depth of flavor, but it's not so
You have the moisture
butter.
infused with the
Yes,
butter instead of being
yes.
soaked in the fat. That's really amazing. Actually, that's a cooking technique that I've used about 1/1000th as well as you. But
Now you can.
No,
Yeah.
it's an amazing idea just to get the essence. Sometimes less is more, right?
That's right.
It's like in music. It's like in any artistic endeavor. And you mentioned that you were a painter, so you know all about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes choosing the exact right thing in the right proportion has much more impact than overdoing it.
You can season it and cook it, and it still won't be as good as if the product was wonderful. And
No,
now
we
you are tasting the wine. How does that work with that?
Wow, beautifully, because the wine is very, I'm not a big Merlot drinker, generally speaking. I used to drink more Bordeaux than anything else, and now going much more towards the Burgundies. But the idea of the Malbec is one I like actually a lot. But the Malbec Merlot to not blend is interesting. But it goes perfectly with it has enough body to stand up to the meat, doesn't overwhelm the taste. And there was something you said earlier which I find really interesting, which is that you thought that the pairing had some kind of a challenge to it because the herbs and the pine needles were pulling you in two different
And
directions.
then the sweetness of the sauce. The sauce is pretty sweet.
Well, I haven't tasted that. But I want to get back to I've never actually had pine needle phone before. And I must say, it tastes exactly like you would.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
very
It tastes like a walk on the forest.
Yeah.
A walk in the forest smells.
Well, that's right. And the green beans are amazing. They're not wilted. They're not too crunchy. They're just al dente enough. And they're full of flavor. Did you cook them before you cooked them, right?
Yes, they were blanched first. Flavors do not exist in a vacuum. They exist in in a composition with each other.
But all art is like that.
I want food that speaks more of just flavors. I want it to speak. I mentioned earlier. I want food that says something about here, geographically and culturally. And so when you're using again wild foods, or when we use a lot of smoked elements, you are giving a narrative and telling a story about the people that are here, the people that have been here.
Well, certainly in the context of Kansas City, that's an amazing thing, right? Because you have this meal, which is so influenced by so many experiences from, in a lot of different places, clearly Europe and West Coast and so forth, and still it really reflects something.
It really reflects the city.
The heartland and the city itself.
And the series is about local chefs and chef-driven food.
Right.
And many of our chefs have studied abroad or studied in other regions of the country, and they're bringing with them that experience and those flavors and that training. We've just finished cooking in the kitchen at Justus Drugstore, a restaurant. We have with us the music director for the Kansas City Symphony, Michael Stern. He is now going to the second course, which as they do in Europe, they finish with a salad.
We have arugula off of our farm. It's Ekloff Farms at Justus Drugstore up at our little house on the other side of Smithville Lake. It's with sous vide compressed pears. These are off of a heirloom tree that I do not know the origin of. It's off an old homestead that's on park property.
But we can say it's an heirloom pear and be
It's an
correct.
heirloom
Yes,
pear.
it is.
There is a port maple vinaigrette, black walnut tuile, and a blue cheese black pepper ice cream. This dish is about port and traditional accompaniment to port.
What have you selected for Michael to drink with this?
This is a Hungarian wine. Its name is Craftsman. The grape is a Harshavelu, and
I'm glad you said it.
it is. You can tell by looking at the color.
Yeah,
I think
dark
it is an
color.
oxidized wine, and purposely so.
Taste it. Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, on a variety of levels. First of all,
It changes as you eat it.
well, that's right. There's
Yes.
an incredible complexity which hits you in the back. It's the spiciness, the nuttiness of the greens. Well, the greens are amazingly fresh, and again, we talked a little bit before about starting with great base materials. So there's that.
Isn't that? I mean,
pear
it's
is
a
really-
party. Yep. Party in your mouth.
Wow. And now here's a confession. The idea of blue cheese anything, especially ice cream, would not necessarily be a positive for me. I'm not a fan.
I saw a little on that bite.
And it really tastes good. There's a wonderful mixture of those flavors with,
It's the pear that has
well, the
helping
sweetness
to,
of the pear and the,
Now this dish, it starts out, the ice cream of course is hard, but as it sits and it melts, the dish takes an evolution. You start out with this port maple vinaigrette, but then I had someone recently ask me, why do you use ice cream as opposed to just straight blue cheese? I like the complexity of the ice cream. There is egg in it and there is cream in it, but as it melts, then you get this evolution in the dish and it changes the vinaigrette. It goes from a straightforward vinaigrette to a creamy vinaigrette.
where's the little wafer?
This is made from Missouri black walnuts. That's a black walnut tuile. Has
that
butter and
delicious?
sugar and a little flour. And I love the flavor of black walnuts, and they're so different from English
perfect with
walnuts.
the cheese and the
Yeah.
pears too.
Wow.
Would never have imagined
Bravo.
this salad. Yeah.
Really amazing. Amazing.
Well, Michael, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy. I know your days are very, very hectic to
I
come
actually
out
have-
to Smithville and taste this food and drink the wine with Chef and me.
Honestly, I have to thank you, because usually when I say, listen, I'm just going to go and grab some lunch and get back to work, it rarely is like this. This is something truly special, and it's fantastic, and I think everybody should avail themselves. Again, I always like to say when talking about the symphony, Kansas City is really a gem, and people should discover it. They should certainly discover it for music, especially coming to the new Performing Arts Center next year. It's going to be amazing.
Gorgeous.
But there's so many things about the other part of the art scene, the museums, and certainly, as proven by today, some restaurants which would be the equal to any in any city in the world. And I thank you.
Thank you,
It's
Michael.
fantastic.
It's an honor.
Thank you for being here.